Well, good afternoon. Tony Quinones, CEO of BrightPath. Great to be back. It's just bringing back some good memories from, I think about 15 years ago. No, God, hopefully it's not that long ago. Joan and I first met while I was, it was 15 years ago, while I was Chief Investment Officer at Cavendish Impact Capital. That opportunity afforded me the opportunity for me to stand in front of everybody here today. So I remember a year ago, we were looking for a site to execute against a DARPA contract. And it was our good fortune that when I put in a list of 15 different locations, 12 different states, that very fortunately we were able to land in Arizona. So one of the objectives that I had was to be able to speak here. A year ago, I thought, wow, it'd be really great to be able to speak here. So when I heard from Joan, I was like, what an awesome, amazing opportunity. So here we go. Manufactured in Arizona. What BrightPath does is we are a small molecule advanced manufacturing platform. What does that mean? Well, the bottom line is we make medicine. We make the active pharmaceutical ingredient, the drug substance that goes into a vial, a pill, a bag, whatever form where the finished dose goes. And it was something that I had the opportunity when I was CIO at Cavendish to see many, many times where early stage drug companies were struggling to get into the door to get some of their molecules made for their pre-IND work, their IND work, or may even be contracted with a CDMO, but still were struggling to get in line to be able to have their drug made. So when I kept looking at this problem, and when people kept asking for capital and always wondering, well, what do they want to use it for? Well, it was consequently the same thing that I knew we had sitting on the shelf, a piece of hardware. And that piece of hardware solves a problem. And that problem many people aren't aware of in the US, but some that are in the healthcare system do recognize that about 250 drugs are actively on the drug shortage list. Some of them chronically for 15 years or more. And about 80% of those drugs are made overseas. May not seem like a big deal, but when you have crises like COVID, becomes a major issue, or you have other types of conflicts, whether it's a war or other supply chain type issues, a hospital anesthesiologist, a nurse, a doctor will tell you they may have a hard time getting the drugs that they need to perform their services. So we also know a lot about price. Everyone in this country is pretty aware that we have high drug prices. Why we have the high drug prices isn't necessarily the purpose or the topic of this presentation today, but we do know because we make the small molecule and we put them in a sterile injectable vial, we're very aware of what the actual cost of drugs, what it takes to make them. And surprisingly enough, they can actually be much more affordable than what they are. So as far as I'm aware, and I think based on the research I've done over a number of years in the industry, is there aren't any small molecule drug manufacturers in Arizona. So that means we were the first. Poses opportunities, also posed a few risks, but we were able to convince the folks at DARPA that contracted us through a program called Equipa Pharma, where the concept was basically this. In order to solve the drug shortage issue and to focus on a need that the US has to have locally sourced active pharmaceutical ingredients made, the key starting materials, the intermediates, all the building blocks to be able to make a medicine, what would be great, so the theory is to be able to have all that capability close to a hospital system. So when I was looking around for a place to go, to be able to execute against this project, I called Joan. And I was very fortunate to be able to have her give me a few recommendations. The first recommendation, she says, you should talk to these people at Mayo, Eric Bob and Steve Lester, because they've got this concept called Discovery Oasis. And because of that opportunity, it allowed us to take the first iteration of a project that kicked off exactly 1 year ago. Literally 1 year ago. We started in a small little lab up in Scottsdale with our IoT device. And concurrently, while we were operating and making out two of the drug substances, lidocaine and carboplatin, we were looking for a larger space. So we were able to find a place over at Falcon Field. It was just an empty warehouse, and that's exactly what we needed. So, as I mentioned, we started with an IoT device. So the little cartoonish picture, the IoT sensor platform, is representative of what we call an STT reactor, a spinning tube and tube reactor. And what makes us even more unique about what it is that we do with our technology is we build it. And when I say like we literally build it, we were in a presentation and I have a big block of steel behind me on my desk. I'm able to take that block of steel and say we literally fabricate the machinery that makes the small molecules. But a big piece of hardware doesn't do much in the pharmaceutical industry. We needed to attach some sensors to it to make it alive, to be able to give feedback to what was occurring inside of those chemical reactions and those key starting materials, those intermediates, the solvents, and every bit of the occurrence that goes on inside of there. We started to build out some machine learning models and algorithms to be able to detect what we thought was occurring in the reactions of that drug substance. Then we were able to concur that, hey, you know what? Those reactions are occurring and you may not necessarily need this key starting material, or you may not necessarily need to use that solvent. The good thing about that, it brings down the cost. The other good thing about that, by working with the FDA and informing them that, look, we're still able to hit a USP standard, that we need to get a drug approval, they said, fantastic. If you don't need it and it's not really doing anything for the mechanism of action, go ahead and keep moving through. So we did. So what we were able to do in this Falcon Field facility is build out this advanced manufacturing platform, which is about as wide as this room right here and is about as narrow from the back of the wall to the front of this desk. And in this side-by-side unit, we were able to put together a mobile clean room, attach to it multiple sensors to detect every bit of impurity from the reactions of the chemistry to the employees walking into the clean room while the reactions of the drug substance was being made, and into the pass-through into the robotic system to be able to make the final finished dose, a sterile injectable for either lidocaine or carbo. So what makes this special is, and this is the kind of the fun part, because I don't know, I see some familiar faces, but I don't know everybody's background, is a concept that I had going back years and years. And it was something that I called TZI. So I was able to code out a series of being able to pull in these different components of the data and being able to put together what we knew was going to be called an EBR, an electronic batch record, something the FDA requires, something that you need to submit to be able to get a drug approval. And I know it took months to be able to compile all of that data. So I kept thinking, well, if all the data is going to be coming off the system as we're manufacturing the drug, why not build into the system the ability to pull down the data and put it into files and then just take it into the template, and then you pretty much have written your electronic batch record? Well, turns out, thank God, it worked. It worked many times. And in fact, it worked so well as we were adding in more features, we kept being asked by DARPA, can you add another sensor? Because we would like to be able to see this occur. Or could you add in this process because we would like to see how this occurs? And as we kept building, we kept needing to hire. And very fortunate, in the ecosystem here, we needed a lot of really good, young, bright people that wanted to do something impactful, and we were able to take it up to the next level. We added an on-premises server, and we really got to work with the machine learning models and really been able to build some predictive analytic capability that really further wowed DARPA, but also the FDA. So what they were really looking for was, hey, what's occurring when you're making a manufactured drug? Are you able to see any of the impurities? And if you are able to see any of the impurities, what are they? Why are they there? Do they need to be there? If they don't need to be there in your drug, then take it out. What could the possible impact on that be? Well, let's circle right back to another Mayo Clinic and DARPA ASU opportunity to be able to say, let's dive in further, because in the cancer treatment of carboplatin, you may have some impurities that maybe don't even need to be there to make the active ingredient active. Get rid of it, and maybe it can improve the patient and still have the effect on treating the cancer. So what we're really doing in this is we started to realize, wow, we're kind of in the advanced manufacturing game, and now we're in the reg tech game. So then, wow, it got even more wonderfully complicated, but I would also say very fun and very exhausting, where we started to look at the traditional data acquisition and all the CFR 2011 requirements that the FDA require us to make. And I just kept thinking, okay, either hire more people or take all of this data and find ways using some of these AI tools that I knew were available, and keep all of that data and keep compiling it and moving it into all of the electronic batch records with all the file stamps, all the data stamps that that not only DARPA wanted to see, but we knew it was very important for the FDA. And sometimes it's really hard to get, especially if you're making a drug substance in one part of the world, and then you have to put the other part of the molecule together in another factory in another part of the world. Then the likelihood that an impurity would happen in just the drug substance before it moves to formulation, now it starts to increase. So that's why this enclosed system became really important to our project, was we were able to say, from the day that the moment that you start your key starting material all the way to the output of that sterile injectable, you had a continuity of the data with real-time analytics throughout the entirety of the process. So we think we're doing really well, and then they said, do it again, and do it again, and do it again, which we did. And I think the other very fortunate part about our team and our staff is, at my age, I can't necessarily work 17 hours in a row, wake up, and then go back and do it. But a 24-year-old and a 26-year-old were more than happy to work with us. So we built out this suite. Like I said, it's about the size of the platform I'm standing in. And inside that suite, it's a side-by-side where the drug substance is made on one side. There's a pass-through. The formulation is completed all within this very tight system, and then it goes into a robotic sterile injectable. So we, in this state of Arizona, can do sterile injectables for multiple small molecule drugs. So the system that we built out, I think the really fun part about it, and I really do appreciate being in Arizona, we really don't have a big manufacturing base for let's say, API. We just don't. So we had to teach, train, and develop everybody. And I think the great thing is they built it along with a couple of the seasoned people. And so now we really own this entire process of integrating this mobile clean room along with our proprietary STT reactor, along with this robotic filling station called the Cytiva. So what we were able to do was file 2 abbreviated new drug applications in February. Now, I mentioned, and I think maybe Eric and Steve and Joan remember, I called, and from November, December to signing a contract and being in Scottsdale, we were able to make a drug substance, build a facility, build a proprietary platform, acquire 2 more patents, and make 2 drugs all in less than a year. And that was kind of a blown away, like, you guys really experienced this concept called DARPA hard, where the country needs something. The country does not need to be in drug shortages. And when the country needs something, DARPA is the agency that's brought in to say, hey, find a couple crazy people that can say they can do it and see if they can. So we did. We were able to do it. And we filed those those drugs in February, provided all the stability data, all the analytics, and in some ways overwhelmed the FDA with, wow, you guys actually pulled this thing off. What do we do now? So now it's in the midst of, as we speak, this afternoon and yesterday, the FDA is like, well, we're not used to seeing this happen so fast. All the stability data is there, all of the steps needed, all the standards are met. What do we do now? Well, as we're waiting for their decision, I think a part of what it is that we think they're going to do is provide us more contracting opportunities to be able to solve some of these drug shortages. And that's literally what's occurring as we talk. So I got to come home to Arizona, which is fantastic. And with a tremendous amount of support of a lot of individuals, the universities, as well as AZ Bio and other people from around the country, we've been able to establish a manufacturing platform that's going to scale out into other phases to be able to build out more. We've already been awarded another DARPA contract. We kicked that off last week, and now we're being pushed to do another DARPA contract using a similar type of system to be able to make key starting materials using waste to KSMs using wood and pulp, which I'm really excited about. So we get to stay very active in not only Phoenix, but hopefully by July up in the White Mountains in White River. Also, Mayo Clinic, I mentioned it, and the Discovery Oasis, without them, without that presence there, we would not have been able to achieve those timelines. So we hope to do more of the drug discovery and early stage of development and formulation in their new build out of what it is that they hopefully get kicked off here soon. So when we start to look to attract other types of companies that are in the pre-IND, IND stage, they come right here to Arizona, world-class institutions and world-class scientists with what we believe is a world-class manufacturing platform. So that's BrightPath.